What's up, guys? We played another game against a from France, 2024. We had 83% accuracy, which is decent. If you look at the graph, haven't black was never better. So I had control pretty much the entire game until he slipped up at some point. So let's go through the game. D4, D5, C4, Queen's Gambit. He takes, Queen's Gambit accepted. I just develop one square so I can recapture. Just simple stuff. I don't know any theory, so I have to just make logical moves. He goes B5, which protects the pawn. And here I stopped for a little bit to think, because the automatic move for me was A4, but I also know that Queen F3 is sometimes an idea, and I forget which opening, but basically Queen F3 and you win the rook. Here you don't win the rook because he has C6, and I spent some time trying to think if it was worth provoking C6 in this position. It turns out that it is worth it. I underestimated how much him playing C6 would mess up his development on the queen side. So I didn't play it, and I went for A4, which is obviously also fine, but I think Queen F3 might have been worth playing. So I'm hitting the pawn, he pushes past, and now this pawn is hanging, but he's up a pawn, so that would just be me getting my pawn back. So here you have to just, it's a 2-on-1. Of course I could take the pawn back, which I do. You don't have to take it back immediately, and you don't have to take it back with the bishop. You can go, let's say, knight d2, trying to take back with the knight, but that's also not completely necessary. Taking back with the bishop is fine. Now material's even, and he has a pawn on my side of the board, which could be a weakness. He develops his knight, controlling center squares, and I still need to develop my minor pieces. So I go knight f3. I think they're saying it's a mistake because they want me to play queen f3 still. Let me see. Yeah, they want me to play queen f3 to provoke c6, which makes his development very awkward. But whatever. Knight f3 is still a fine move. Natural. Now he puts his bishop here and pins the knight. I feel like the Fianchetto square was just asking to be played because it's open since your pawn moved. But he went here instead, which I'm not the biggest fan of. It's funny because I have this tactic here that I didn't even see, which is knight e5. And if he takes your queen, you take on f7 with checkmate because the knight covers both these squares. That's pretty funny. I also missed other easy tactics, such as bishop takes f7, king takes, knight jumps in check, double hitting the bishop, and when the king moves somewhere, you take the bishop, and when the knight takes, the queen takes, and you win the f7 pawn. So yeah, bishop g4 is bad, and these are common ideas, but I haven't played this stuff in so long, I forgot everything. So I thought I was being clever by going queen b3, unpinning my knight, also threatening bishop takes with check, also hitting this pawn. I'm like, ooh, look at this, but it's not a bad move, it's just the Bishop takes f7 and 95 are just so strong that anything not that is a bad move, basically. He plays e6, getting rid of all of those tactics. And now it's just a normal position again. There's no more bishop takes, and 95, although a good move, is, isn't a tactic. So I can develop my knight, I can castle maybe, I can go 95 maybe. I go 95 just to remove the option of him trading and doubling my pawns, and also to maybe take the bishop if he doesn't move, also to prevent his knight from developing to c6. And it does put pressure on f7 and some weird x-rays. Fine. He moves his bishop back because he doesn't want me to take it. That makes sense. I could once again continue developing, castle. There is also this check, which I gave. Not necessary. It doesn't exactly win stuff, but I figured his bishop's over here, not defending these weaknesses. Maybe I have I can get some good control of these squares and do something. I knew he had to block with one of these pieces. c6 hangs, so not here, but he had to throw a knight, and I thought it would be like weird for him. He'd be tied down on the light squares, so I threw in the check, and he blocks with the knight as intended. Now I don't plan on trading. I just wanted to kind of keep him tied down and pinned. What else? I do have a tactic here. Again, another tactic, which I missed, and that is g4. The reason this is a tactic is because this knight is hit twice, right? And the queen defending it, doesn't really matter, because if I take with the knight, you're not going to take with the queen and lose it. So if I go g4, hitting the bishop, and he moves the bishop back, I go g5, hitting the knight. Now, if he doesn't move the knight, he loses it. If he does move the knight, this guy loses a defender, and I can just take the knight for free. So it wins a piece. And if I go g4 and he takes the pawn, I just take that piece. Wait. No, I don't take that piece. I take this piece with check. And again, if the queen takes, I take the queen. If the knight takes, then I take the bishop. It's no longer defended by his knight. So you win a piece either way. I missed it. Here, once again, you can develop, you can castle. I tried to take advantage of these light squares somehow. You can't exactly take advantage of them just yet. I wonder if queen c4 is a move. a6, c5, a6, bishop c6, bishop d6, and they want to give up the rook in that position. Queen c4 is interesting, but what did I play? Yeah, I played bishop d6. Now, assuming he moves the rook, right? Let's just assume he moves it, I don't know, here, which he didn't do. I still have the g4 tactic, but even if I didn't have the g4 tactic, they want e4, which I suppose the idea is to pin this guy to put extra pressure on this guy. Perhaps. He played the best move, which is to leave your rook hanging. Suspicious. To leave your rook hanging and go bishop d6. And the best move is not to take the rook, but unless you can immediately add pressure here, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't really take the rook. What do they want? Knight takes d7, knight takes d7, e4. Just keeping all the threats. e5, queen g3. I mean, that's a line, but that's also a rook. And I didn't take the rook immediately. I did take on d7. I mean, he obviously can't move the rook because then I just win a piece. So he has to take my knight back. And here, if I could add pressure to this knight by like jumping, I mean, even if I jumped my queen to b5, it's still, it would prevent it from castling, but that's about it. So I don't see how to add more pressure to the knight, so I just take the rook. I know the engine says there's better lines, but I'm gonna take the rook 100% of the time. So, and I get it. I give up a beautiful light square bishop. I make his queen active on this diagonal, hitting the pawn. And maybe I did lose my advantage, but I am up in exchange. So I castle, he castles, and now I should just probably get these pieces out. And I think I should be better once I get these pieces out. So I develop my knight. He launches an attack with c5, trying to free his pieces up, which makes a lot of sense. I have to keep developing. I go knight c4, hitting the bishop. Also, I can't go this way without losing a pawn. And I need to move my knight to develop my other bishop. So it makes sense. He moves his bishop away because he doesn't want me to take it for the knight. And now I could develop my bishop. That makes sense. I could go f3, planning for changing my pawn structure. I played d takes c. Goes from 0.5 to 0. Computer doesn't like it, and oh, I see what I overlooked. I figured that he would take, I would take, but he has this, and I thought he might, what did I think? I thought he might go something like here, here, and bishop and the e2 square would be defended by the queen. But he has bishop e2 first. And now if I move the rook out of harm's way, he has this fork with the knight. So basically you have to take the knight, no? Oof. Bishop takes h2, trying to deflect the king so he can't recapture. Yikes. Okay, so yeah, I missed that line. Definitely. He takes, I took. He did what I thought he was going to do, not the bishop e2 line. And I did go back to d2. Okay, so it is what I thought. Now he puts his queen here. Kind of cementing the knight a bit. That was a little weird. I felt a little uncomfortable here, but b3 is 1 to defend the knight that's currently hanging, and 2 to open up the fianchetto square for my bishop because it needs to be developed at some point. So I go b3. Now he goes bishop c7. Maybe he was opening that square for the rook to hit the pawn I just moved. Why else would he do that? I don't see any other reason. What is this? Bishop f3. I get a bishop, he gets a pawn, I get a knight. He goes check, I go king h1, he goes queen h3 probably. Then I have to go here, he takes it. Wow, that's a crazy. Yikes. Bishops are dangerous. Bishop pair is dangerous. So anyway, he moved his thing. So now I should try to get rid of all of this stuff by going f3 myself. Getting rid of all of the dangers around my king. There is also... How bad is Frad kenneling? Does this still allow all this stuff? Yeah, it still allows bishop f3. What did I play? Okay, good. I played f3 because I sensed danger, even if I didn't sense the move bishop f3. And this kind of stops everything because it's protected. The queen now protects laterally, and also the queen is defending the knight, so it has to stay on a contact square like here or here. You know, it doesn't have that many moves. He chooses to stay in the center. I actually was more afraid of queen g6 staying in front of the king. This not so much, because you could always throw rooks behind. You can always get out of the way. Here I can develop my bishop, maybe bishop a3. I can get my queen out of the way, because you know his rook's going to end up coming here. I could put my own rook behind. That makes sense. So I picked the move to get my queen out of the way. That way I can place a rook here. And also my queen's not going to be x-rayed. He does go rook here, as I suspected. Now I have the opportunity to fix this weak pawn and create a pawn chain by going e4. I can still develop my bishop. a3 probably even the fianchetto square. Looks fine to me. There's also, I wonder if rook d1 walks into, you know, it's undefended now. Okay, I played rook d1. So he can't move the knight. He doesn't have any knight discovery checks, just because the squares work out that way. So he can't move the knight because the queen hangs. My rook is loose, but again, he can't move the knight, so it's a bit... You know what? What is? How does this go? Yeah, if I take here and he takes here, isn't that perpetual? And if I take here and he takes, I guess, yeah, if he takes, I take, he takes, and then I take, get my piece back. Okay. Scary stuff. So I move my rook over. What? He takes my bishop. I guess he's trading his queen for a rook and a piece. But was that necessary? Was that necessary? He can't move his queen. I mean his knight. Let's say he moves his queen some random square. This is hit twice, so you can't do that. Can't go here because of e5 and you lose the knight. Bishop g6, defending the knight. But then e4 again, disconnecting with tempo. Queen goes back. Yeah, I guess his knight would be stuck there, and then maybe like knight b2 would add a third guy. Maybe he had to do it. Okay, so yeah, he didn't really have many choices. So he just takes my bishop, which didn't move. His old game. Which knight was this even? I don't know, but this guy definitely moved once, twice, like 5 times just to take my bishop wherever he came from. I don't know which knight that is. So I take it with my other rook, get it in the game, and now I'm like, okay, my position's good. I'm gonna, you know, this is easy. He doesn't want to trade everything and leave me with the queen, so he moves his queen out of the way, but I can still trade rooks at the very least, which I do because I'm up material. I want to make the game as easy as possible for me. Now I should probably just put something on the open file, whether it's a queen, whether it's a rook. There are knight jumps, but I suppose knight jumps are good too, only because I'm already doubled, so I can instantly infiltrate. That makes sense. So something to the D file or a knight move makes sense. I did a knight move, hitting the queen and allowing for infiltration. I like this move. More tempo moves. Queen stays around here to defend, hits the knight, but now my queen can come in and defend. I can also move the knight to a square. Not sure why I didn't move my queen in to defend, but that's fine. I put my knight on a central square, defended by a pawn. There's no complaints here. Yeah, and then now I'm still ready to infiltrate. And it also covers d2 in case that matters. He plays f5, which, I mean, yeah, you're kicking my knight, but I don't know, it's a little suspicious of a move to me. I can go to c5 now, double hitting. There's this cool move, queen c8, because if he trades and takes your knight, you take with check, so that's not good for him. I just played knight c5, got it out of the way, again with tempo, and it's defended, and it's hitting a new weakness that was created. Queen goes here, defending the weakness, staying centralized. I have so many moves here, like it almost doesn't matter what I do, I feel like. But what do? I went e4, and this just breaks this whole thing open, so I can get more access to his king, more access to lines and files. If he moves his queen, I just take his pawn, and now I have another file to work with. If he doesn't move his queen, he has to take, which he did, and then I took with the knight. Now I have, again, a knight in the center defended by a pawn, but it's an outpost because there's no pawns, so now it's just super good. And this is open again. He goes here to challenge, which makes sense, but I'm up a pawn and an exchange, so it doesn't make that much sense. Queen c4, protecting it another time, offering the queen trade. Also, this pawn is in the way. He plays this move, which is kind of cool. So he takes a piece. If I take the queen, he takes the queen. He's up a piece. So it was pretty, it was a cute move, but I just took back with the pawn. And another funny thing about this is, even if I did take his queen, and he takes my queen, and he thinks he's up a piece, I still have rook c8, and the king can't defend this in time, and he still loses another piece. So this whole construction is not working out too well, because in all the lines, rook c8 is just really annoying. So I can recapture the bishop, I can recapture the queen, I can do whatever I want basically. I just take the bishop with the pawn because it's the simplest, forcing an endgame like this, and I have an extra pawn here and a rook for a bishop. Fine, some people still might lose this, so let's see how we close it out with a minute. He brings his king up, that makes sense. I bring my king up, it's my own. I only have two pieces, might as well use it, right? And then I go b4 here. I was thinking, you know, what's my plan to win? Yeah, you could just try to get your king super active, wherever, on one side of the board or the other. But I have this extra pawn. I might as well push it. His king is cut off on the c file. So let's just say my rook, I put my rook on a, you know, far light square like c2. So it can't be harassed by the bishop, and his king can't cross over to the c file. I guess he has the idea of going behind his own piece to get access, but then I could just switch my rook to the other side of the board and harass these pawns. But let's say my rook's here, his king can't get in. I can kind of just, I went b4, I would go b4 because I don't want him to play a5 and freeze my pawns, right? Assuming the rook wasn't defending that square. So I played b4 so that he can't play a5 because I'll just push past it. So that was my thing, and I was just gonna push my pawn up next. you know, lead with my past potential passed pawn, and then I was gonna move my king in, right? He can't get past these guys with his guys, and then I was just gonna slowly push my pawn, get my king in, move my rook, and then just slowly push these pawns. One will get traded. You know, maybe his bishop will take in some line. I'll give a check, pick up a pawn. I mean, it's just so winning. But my plan was to push these guys. And after b4, he resigned. Because it's, you know, at this rating, you know that you're just gonna lose. So it's really hard to mess up as white. I don't know, what's like a sample line? G5. Let's just say, well, I mean, you could even start probably by going behind. That looks really good too. If he moves his bishop, he's just gonna pick stuff off. Whichever way he goes, you go the other way. Yeah, it's not easy. So even if he gives this check, you move your king somewhere. I don't know where. Now what do you do about these pawns all of a sudden? If you want to defend them with your king, well, I guess maybe that's why you should put your king here. So like, you can go this way. Stuff like this. See, but now even the bishop is almost trapped. He gets behind your pawns. You could probably ignore it, let him take. You know, like, it's just too weak for black, because rook's are so much better than the bishop. So anyway, we win another game. We go up in points, but it's not so much about the winning because I'm using new openings. So I know I'm gonna lose a ton of games. So it's more about just learning ideas. That's because I'm gonna be going up and down a lot probably for the next 100 points. So this is another win, but don't worry, losses to come for sure. We keep climbing.